Hi everyone, how are you? So this is our final group presentation video about corruption in Indonesia and its impact on foreign investment. The members of our group are Adha Mutya Rachma, Glorrya Yoweni, Gede Eka Praditya, Nanda Rizky, Shally, Rana, Andariza, and Omalita Anigomang. Hope you enjoy this video.
Hi, I'm Glorrya, and now I will explain to you guys about the definition of corruption and the causes of corruption. Based on one of the experts, Joseph Samuel Nye, he stated that corruption is behavior which deviates from the formal duties of a public role because of private regarding close family, personal, private clique, pecuniary or status gains, or violates rules against the exercise of certain types of private regarding influence. However, before Nye published his definition, the meaning of corruption has been debatable for decades because when the experts giving the explanation, there has been several statements that say the definition and the significance of corruption is different. Thus, when the expert gives the explanation, it should be based on the concept in order to give the reader better understanding of the context of corruptions, where the concept of corruption is essentially political and it is in the context of government. Also, corruption is morally loaded term. Just like integrity, it is a positive term or a positive morally term, and everyone seeks for it. However, corruption is a negative label. And now I will give you the definition of corruption based on the law of the Republic of Indonesia number 31 year 1999 about the eradication of criminal action of corruption. So in the article 3 it is written that anyone who with the aim of benefiting himself or another person or a corporation misuses his or her authority, opportunity or means because of his position which may harm the state finances or the state economy shall be punished with life imprisonment or imprisonment of at least 1 year and a maximum of 20 years. Also, there are the amendment to the law number 31 year 1999 concerning the eradication of criminal action of corruption with the law of the Republic of Indonesia number 20 year 2001. And the difference of these two is there are several changes in the article from the law number 31 and law number 20. And after knowing the definition of corruption, we should know the causes of corruption. Before we know what are the causes of corruption, one of the experts named Haywood said that as there are many varieties of corrupt behavior, so there are multitudinous factors contributing to corruption. So many explanations are offered that is difficult to classify them in any systematic manner. And it is important to be understand that the factor of corruption is different from the causes of corruption. And here we will talk about the causes of corruption. And so the causes of corruption that we provided here is the first is having low income and the second is high demand of consumption, where it has a correlation because people will carry out corrupt activities whether it is small or large, and it could be in any form. Not only they are taking the state money because they are urged to fulfill their needs. The third is living in a closed economic country where they will be experience difficulties for their growth, especially in the economic growth because the lack of domestic resources, and when they lack of domestic resources they have fewer product variation. Also, the country is not open for the international relations. The fourth is the people are not educated enough or having a low level of education, where it could lead to having a less expected job, and when they are working they will get a low position which made they will have a low income. And the fifth is the environment of politics and economics are unstable. And the last is it is already a habit of the corruptor. So in the last 2 points, especially in the point 5, it is written that the environment of politics and economic are unstable. So when the environment is unstable, it is possible for the power holders to take the state money without any supervision due to its instability. And the last point is because the corruptor already has the habit, so it is hard to change the habit, although there already has a good supervision and a firm law in the country.
So here I will explain about the impact of corruption. The first one is human development. So as defined by the UNDP, human development is the expansion of people's freedom to live long, healthy, and creative lives. And expanding choices can be achieved only by creation of human capabilities that can be increased through development of human resources. As measured by the Human Development Index published by the UNDP, human development contains 3 vital aspects. The first one is health, education, and standard of living. And there are a number of reasons why human development may be affected by corruption. As the literature review indicates that corruption affects human development by lowering economic growth and incentive to invest. And also, different empirical studies show that corruption influences the resources of spent on education and health. Therefore, good governance is crucial to human development because without it, power will almost certainly be used in ways that do not support and sustain overall human development. And as shown in the slide, it's the way corruption affect the human development. So corruption leads to less growth, less spending on health, and less spending on education, and those things leads to less GDP per capita for certain country, for example, and less GDP produce low level of standard of living, low level of life expectancy, and low human capital accumulation, and those things produce low level of human development. And in the next slide, it's the graphic coming from UNDP in 2018. As we can see, countries that score higher in the corruption perception index tend to also have better scores in the human development index. The second impact is public health. So public health coverage, meaning that all individuals and communities can access essential quality health services without suffering financial hardship, has become the top priority of World Health Organization. And corruption indeed affect the public health sector. For example, the act of corruption, it could be from smaller scale acts by doctors and nurses who charge bribes or informal payments, to larger scale acts at the ministerial or hospital administrative level, when people in power siphon money or redirect resources away from those who need it for their own benefit. As what stated in the report from Transparency International with the title "The Ignore Pandemic" on March 2019, says that corruption in the health sector kills an estimated 140,000 children a year. And the third impact is foreign direct investment. So corruption leads to create uncertainty of the flow of income and expenses, which makes it difficult for the potential investor to calculate exactly the net present value of the project. And with increasing uncertainty, an investor will refuse to invest his capital even though he knows that his project will be profitable. And this will certainly affect the business environment in the certain country. And this issue will be explained in more detail in the following slide.
Okay, my name is Shally and Andariza. I am the one who's responsible to explain about corruption in Indonesia. The first one, we are going to talk about political corruption. So, Peter Larmor, 2011, concluded that the emergence of corruption in politics could be found in three forms. Firstly, the abuse of power, where the owners of power use their power for private or party interests. And then secondly, duplicitous exclusion or marginalization of people's voices, where popular votes are excluded from the decision making and public participation is ignored. And then thirdly, business and state relations. The above three forms mentioned by Larmor above have been experienced by Indonesia and unfortunately have become the norm of Indonesian political system, where basically the reform of the Indonesian political system has to experience setback on many fronts, especially in the last 5 years, where the mix of politics and business has become the new norm. And the newly elected members of 2019 until 2024 of the district, provincial, and central parliaments are dominated by business people. And at the same time, if we closely check the background of the current region, mayor, governors, ministers, and the president himself are coming from business or private sector. Therefore, the main root cause of political corruption in Indonesia is the mix between politics and business. And then, the real evidence of political corruption in Indonesia can be seen in the high number of political corruption / elected officials corruption prosecuted by the Corruption Eradication Commission, in Indonesia we call it KPK. From its establishment in 2003, the KPK has prosecuted more than 250 members of parliament, local, provincial, central, more than 20 governors, more than 100 regional mayors, 27 ministers, and many head and top leaders of political parties, and many more high-ranking at legislature, executive, judiciary, and some commissioners of state auxiliary bodies such as electoral commissions, business competition supervisory commission, and other. And the source is from Addressing the Root of Political Corruption in Indonesia by Laude M. Syarif Faisal from the Corruption Eradication Commission itself. And then next, corruption in Indonesia in general. So corruption remains a serious problem and overall progress have been slow, right? And one reason for the moderate pace of reform on corruption issues is the deeply embedded institutional culture of patronage. Often acts of bribery or corruption are not viewed by Indonesian authorities as corrupt practices. Increasing the training and knowledge of the types of activities that constitute corruption is therefore key in changing this attitude. So a second challenge to combating corruption is that Indonesia's oversight mechanisms are largely under-resourced, and many agencies lack the capacity and advanced skill required to deal with complex cases of corruption and abuses of public expenditure, particularly in investigation, surveillance, and interview techniques. There is also a dearth of trainers capable of providing the necessary guidance and instruction on a continuing and consistent basis. And further compounding reforms efforts are weak communication and coordinations amongst key institutions such as the Attorney General's Office or AGO, Indonesian National Police, and then the Commission, the Corruption Eradication Commission itself. This inhibits information sharing and the ability to pool resources and ultimately effective prosecution of corruption cases. And then not just that, both bureaucratic and grand corruption are present in Indonesia. Bureaucratic corruption is exacerbated by the country's weak administrative capacity, low salaries, and the lack of oversight. This is from Global Integrity Report in 2011. In this context, bureaucratic and administrative forms of corruption are widespread across all public services and agencies. For example, 15.4% of all companies interviewed in the 2012 Global Competitiveness Report consider corruption as the most severe problem affecting the business environment in Indonesia. Moreover, according to the World Bank and IFC Enterprise Survey, nearly 15% of the companies reported being expected to pay bribes to public officials to get things done.
Now, the question is, Which community suffers the most because of corruption? Well, corruption affects all of us. Corruption hurts everyone. It threatens sustainable economic development, ethical values, and justice. It destabilizes our society and endangers our law. It undermines the institutions and values of our democracy. The impact of corruption goes beyond corrupt individuals, the innocent colleagues who are implicated, or the reputation of the organizations they work for. But because public policies and public resources are largely beneficial to poor people, it is they who suffer the harmful effects of corruption most grievously. And I repeat, it is poor people who suffer the most because of corruption. Corruption is likely to increase poverty because it reduces the potential income earning of the poor. Therefore, eradicating corruption is a crucial issue in the poverty reduction process. To be dependent on the government for housing, healthcare, education, security, and welfare makes the poor most vulnerable to corruption since it stalls service delivery. Delays in infrastructure development, poor building quality, and layers of additional costs are all consequences of corruption. Out of a population of around 260 million, about 26.42 million Indonesians still live below the poverty line. As of September 2018, Indonesian poverty rate stood at 9.66% of the total population. This means that around 25 million people live below the poverty line. Statistics Indonesia said that it was the lowest ever recorded. In September 2017, the poverty rate in September 2017 stood at 10.12%, around 26.58 million poor people. Data from World Bank and Transparency International, then using auto-aggressive distributed lag or ARDL and dynamic error correction model or ECM, focuses on headcount poverty index during years 1995 to 2017. The results of study indicated that corruption has positive significant effect on the level of poverty ratio in 1% significance level in the long run. This implies that in the long run, 1% increase in corruption would increase the poverty ratio by 1.36%. The negative implication of corruption on the life of the citizen is a major disaster in the economy and harmful to the growth and development of the citizen in particular and the economy in general.
So for the next is that I would like to explain about what is FDI or foreign direct investment. But before that, let me explain about what is investment in general first, in order to make us easier to understand about FDI later on. So, in a simple term, investment can be defined as the beginning of the business activity by investing money today to get the benefit or profit in the future. So, by these definitions, I can take a conclusion that investment is one of the way for the people, especially for investor, to earn money in a long run. Therefore, then we move to the FDI or foreign direct investment. So, according to the definitions that I quoted from Paul Krugman, who is here as the an American econom, he defines that FDI or foreign direct investment is an international capital flow where companies from one country want to establish or expand its company or business activity in the other country. So, by these definitions, it also can be noted that inside the FDI, it is not only involving the transfer of resources, but it is also involving the impositions of control over the company abroad. Next slide, please. So, we are still in the same discussions which is regarding the FDI. So, in Indonesia, the matters of investment and also foreign investment have also been legally ruled out through the law number 25 in the year of 2007, which specifically regulates regarding the capital investment. This law is actually ruled out a lot of things, and one of it is about the general definitions of the investment until the specific definition of foreign investment. So, according to the law number 25 in the years of 2007, which is regarding the capital investment, here the general definitions of investment can be defined as all form of investment activities both by domestic investor or by the foreign investor to conduct a business in the territory of the Republic of Indonesia. Meanwhile, for the specific definitions of the foreign investment, it can be defined as an investment activity to conduct the business in the territory of the Republic of Indonesia, which is conducted only by foreign investor, either using full foreign investor capital or jointly with domestic investor as well. Next slide, please. So, what is the difference? The difference is inward foreign direct investment can be understood as an investment that come from other or outside countries into inside a country. Meanwhile, for the outward foreign direct investment, it can be understood as an investment that from inside the country to other or outside the country. So, since we already know about what is FDI or foreign direct investment by its definition, then let me explain about the types of FDI. Yes, within the FDI, foreign direct investment is not only consist of one types of name, but if we try to classify it, there are two names of foreign direct investment based on its type, namely inward foreign direct investment and also outward foreign direct investment.
So here comes to my part that why FDI is so important, especially for the developing country, and also I will explain some advantages that countries will get from FDI. Foreign direct investment has become an important source of private external finance for developing country. It is different from the other major types of external private capital flows in that it is motivated largely by the investor's long-term prospect for making profits in production activities that they directly control. And for the advantages, the first one is increased savings. The saving things is very important and one of the factor for developing country can grow, and the FDI can help them, and from that it may lead to the economic growth. So because it is affecting the serving as well, so the economic can grow and grow, can have some progress in it. And because the saving things is increasing, so it can cause the second advantages, which increase employment. FDI can increase the employment is because when the more savings a country has and the money will sitting in a bank, and from that the bank will process and make those money as a loans and sell them to some local company, which can increase the investment. And FDI also can increase education and training by increase employment. It have these advantages have strong type because As many as the employment grow, they will be provided some education and training by the by their company to achieve the qualification and also to improving their quality also. And the other advantage is increased research, development and technology, improve infrastructure, increase choice of market and software and so on. The FDI is not only increase some resources but also the most important thing is FDIs can be a place for transferring production technology, skills, innovative capacity and organizational and managerial practices between locations, as well as accessing international marketing networks.
Okay, the next part is about how corruption affect foreign direct investment in Indonesia. So, as previously explained by my partner Omalita, that corruption is certainly has negative impact on many scope of work, and it is also applied to the scope of foreign direct investment in Indonesia. Why? So it is because by the existence of the Corruption Act, the expected investment return will have a detrimental output. So, how it is work? So, in simple explanations based on the slide, I can explain that when there are foreign direct investment, but it is also followed by the Corruption Act inside, it will cause the expected result of the investment which will be gained are not optimal or even completely detrimental, because as mentioned before, the act of corruption will produce a detrimental output which will able to triggering an increase in the production cost and then high cost of economy and then inefficient allocations of the resources and etc. So, in this context, all of the output which was triggered by the Corruption Act that I have mentioned it before, I can say that it is negative output. Therefore, by looking and considering at the presence of this negative output, not infrequently, it will produce a lot of negative impact and also losses. And of course, it is also able to make the foreign investor who have invested their capital in Indonesia will stop and also withdraw their previously invested capital because of course they don't want to experience losses. So yeah, it is just better for them to just stop or withdraw their previously invested capital in Indonesia unilaterally. Not only that, the more important thing is the long-term impact. Because by looking at the existing track record, which caused by the corruption negative impact and also the bad experience of foreign investor in the scope of investment, for example, in Indonesia, this will also often affect the Indonesia's good name or image reputations in the international world. So, we don't need to be asked the interest of foreign investor to invest its capital in Indonesia due to the considerations of this negative track record will become weakened. And of course, the foreign investor will tend to discourage its attention to investing in Indonesia. In addition to supporting the previous argument, in general, if it is also analyzed based on the level of corruption in countries that have the capitals and examine the absolute differences in the level of corruption between the countries that own the capital and also the countries who receive the foreign capital, the corruption also say tend to have like more failure impact to the foreign direct investment, because in general foreign investor will avoid the countries who has the high rate of corruption, because every investor believes and realizes that corruption is the wrong act and able to produce inefficiency in the operational costs. Moreover, on the same side, before foreign investors want to invest their capital, in general, they will try to learn the risks that they will face in the future, and also they will learn about the investment success growth in their destination country, especially if they want to invest in the developing country such as Indonesia.
Okay, so back here again to Shally and Andariza, I will also explain about basically, is there any recommendation or suggestions that are provided to help us erase this corruption? Well, we find this from the Corruption of Eradication Commission itself. They recommend several strategic points to the Governor of DKI Jakarta after observing the achievements of the Corruption Prevention Coordination Program as stated in the Monitoring Control Prevention /MCV. So the first one we have is data integration. Basically, all data belongs to the DKI Jakarta government, such as regional property and local taxes, land use appointment, permits and other permits, data collected in related central agencies, Ministry of Home Affairs and Ministry of Social Affairs, as well as social, population, health, economic, education and other government data will be put together in an integrated One Jakarta digital map. And then second, expansion of the tax clearance system. Implementation of the tax clearance system in all tax points, namely personal tax and business and society tax, through an electronic system based on a national identity number, tax object number, or others to be applied to the one-stop investment and integrated service agencies. And then we also have the third one is the regulatory evaluations. So basically the governor of DKI Jakarta said Adha needs to evaluate local regulations related to tax relief and the elimination of tax receivables or other regulations which are against the principle of justice or are not in accordance with the regulations above, including the overlap of several legal products such as regional regulations, governance, circular, and others which regulate the same. And then last but not least, we have controlling and restoring assets. So the DKI Jakarta government said needs to accelerate efforts to certify assets, hold coordinations meetings for regional property, control infrastructure, facilities and public utilities, and control disputed assets and overlapping assets. That's all.